Hey guys, welcome to Midwest Fantasy Football Week 4. This week's top score for the second week in a row, my Melvin Gordon Bombay grabbed the high score, defeating Derrick's Freeman Fuck Up Project 149.5 to 98.06, a 50.1 point margin of victory. My team was led by Chris Godwin's 38.2 point day. Backing that up with a trio of 20 plus point games from Lamar Jackson, James Conner, and Austin Hooper. My plan to piecemeal a running back solution together until Melvin Gordon's return appears to have worked.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
As my wide receiver core has carried me so far this season, I currently roster both number 1 and number 2 and 4 of the top 20 wide receivers so far, while only having 2 running backs in the top 25. The ageless wonder Frank Gore and James Conner, who jumps into the top 25 after having his best game of the season so far on Monday Night Football. Derrick got a solid effort from across the board, getting between 15 and 20 points from 7 of his 9 roster spots, led by 15.2 points from Will Dissly. Unfortunately, the best game on the team was Jameis Winston, who put up a 32.3 point game while riding his bench. I'm sure nobody likes listening to me talk about my team first, so next week should be an interesting game, as 2 of the top 3 teams are going head-to-head with some A-plus Scott-on-Scott action. This is the first time that a team has had back-to-back high scores since week 4 and 5 of last season when Chris did it. This is counter to what our league stat guy said, whose faulty stats said it hasn't happened since 2015. Chris was quick to point out last night that he did it last year. As for Nick...
Frick you! Hey! This is a house of lies!
Speaking of that other Scott, this week's biggest blowout was Pope 1.0's To Deuce or Not To Deuce, putting a thumping on Alex's Funkle Up 138.4 to 82.72, a 55.7 point margin of victory.
I'm thumping. That's why they call me Thumper.
Pope 1.0 was led to victory on the strength of a well-balanced attack. Pittsburgh was the top-scoring roster spot on the team with 23 points scored this week, followed by Kenny Galladay with 21.2 and Carson Wentz with 19.7. 4 other players had between 13 and 18 points. Heck, even his bad games were still 7 points apiece from Amari Cooper and Evan Ingram. Heck, his best player on the whole day was riding his bench, the 24 points that he got from snagging Wayne Gallman Jr. off the waiver wire. For Alex, he got 26.7 points from Austin Eckler and 22.5 points from Jacoby Brissett. He had a trio of weak performances this week, getting only 1 point from Mecole Hardman, 2.9 points from Philip Dorsett, and 3 points from Juju Smith-Schuster. In this week's closest game, Nick's Hootie and the T-Blowfish sneaks past Jason's I Was Saying Boo Earns, 106 to 104.92, a 1.08 point margin of victory. The T-Blowfish were led to victory by the massive 225-yard day on the ground by Leonard Fournette, putting up 28.5 points. At some point, you'd like to see the guy how to figure out how to score a touchdown, as he's already put up over 500 total yards this season without a score. Matt Ryan's 18 points and the dual 14-point games on Sunday Night Football from Michael Thomas and Will Lutz assisted as well. You dealt with Green Bay's defense, giving you a negative 0.1 points, which was about all you could spare. For Jason, you got 21.2 points from Cortland Sutton, 20.4 points from Phil Rivers, and 19.3 points from Chicago's defense. Getting Chris Davis in for either DeAndre Hopkins, who only put up 4 points, or Allen Robinson, 11.2 points, would have been enough to grab you the win here. Or picking up a tight end who scored more than 1.5 points, as you opted to start Greg Olsen, who you drafted, to be fair, in George Kittle's spot at tight end during Kittle's bye week. Olsen managed to put up like 22 points last week, but the 1.5 this week was quite the drop from last week. Nick moves to 2-2, and the top of the 2-2 teams at position 4 in the standings. With the loss, Jason drops to 0-4 and into last place. I felt like this clip from The Simpsons probably sums up your feelings on that one pretty well.
Hello, this is Mole Man in the morning. Good Mole Man to you. Today, part 4 of our series of the agonizing pain in which I live every day.
In other matchups, Chris's 3-headed monster stays undefeated, holding off Brandon's once-in-a-generation 116.5 to 109.75. New England's defense continues to be a strong play for Chris, getting 27.9 points this week. Backing that up, Todd Gurley added 22.5 points and 17.9 points from David Johnson. This was Chris's lowest score in a win so far this season, putting up only 116.5 points. This does not bode well for the rest of the league. I really thought Brandon was going to catch up with Chris, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. Brandon trailed going into Monday Night Football, needing only about 13 points from Tyler Boyd. Unfortunately, since his offense really couldn't do much against Pittsburgh defense, and he only put up 4.8 points. Brandon's squad was led by the huge 40.8 point day from Nick Chubb, which goes to waste. 18 points from Patrick Mahomes, and 17 points from Tennessee's defense. You were hurt by the decision to start Marlon Mack over Josh Jacobs. That alone would have netted you an additional 8.9 points, which would have been enough to get the win. Lee's That's Headley knocked off Pope 2.0's Pew Pews, 86.25 to 83.6. Lee's wide receiver combo of Devontae Adams, 26 points, and Robert Woods, 25.9 points, accounted for 60% of his team's total scoring this week. That was enough to knock off Pope 2.0. No other player on Lee's squad scored double-digit points from either the starting lineup or the bench. Fortunately, Pope 2.0 was unable to put up much anything this week either, getting 23.6 points from Jared Goff, 16.9 points from Mike Evans, and 12 points from Travis Kelce. The big wide receiver combo for Lee made all the difference here, as Lee had 3 starters, each put up less than 2 points, and Pope 2.0 decided to match that with 3 players of his own, scoring less than 4.5 points. Lee's pretty much probably just happy to get into the win column here, knocking off Pope 2.0. This is his first win in his history versus Pope 2.0. With the win, Lee moves to 1-6 all-time versus Pope 2.0. And finally, Josh's Please Not Last Again, nice name, I like it, climbs out of last place by knocking off defending champion Drew's Run CMC, 127.6 to 89.9. The trade between Josh and Drew was held up this week because of Green Bay playing on Thursday night. The 2 players that Josh was sending out in this trade, Rodgers and Kupp, combined to score 52 points versus the 32 points for the guys he was getting back in the deal. Selling high, one might say. Besides Rodgers and Kupp, Josh got 23.7 points from Jarvis Landry and 19.5 points from Chris Carson to help carry him to the win. For Drew, Christian McCaffrey continues to run rampant, adding another 28.9 points to his season total. You also got 16 points from Dalvin Cook. Could there be a quarterback controversy this week? Should you start Tom Brady at Washington or Aaron Rodgers at Dallas? Yahoo's numbers give a slight edge to Rodgers, which means that you should almost certainly start Brady. Yahoo seems like they can be kind of a guessing game sometimes.
I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Guess it, and you die first. Go!
Okay. 56-ish?
According to the resident league stat guy, so whatever that might be worth, Josh has a winning record against only one active owner in the league, and that's Drew. With the win, Josh moves to 6-1 all-time versus Drew. I have to imagine this is probably what Josh thinks anytime he sees Drew on the schedule.
What would have been your last words to Drew?
Run, bitch! Run!
Other stats that Nick sent me that I hadn't fit in yet anywhere. This is the first time that we've ever had 2 teams start 4-0, and the second year in a row that we've had 2 teams start 0-4. A bit of hope for those 2 0-4 teams. Last season's Deuce was not one of those 0-4 teams. 22 teams have started 3-1 or better in the history of the league. Of those, 17 of the 22 went on to make the playoffs. 6 of the 7 champions have started 3-1. The only outstanding blemish on that record was Pope 2.0 winning the championship from the 6th seed in 2016. This week's waiver action was considerably quieter than last week. The 2 hottest sought-after players were a pair of defenses. Philly's defense went to Nick for a $5 bid over Pope 1.0 and Drew, and New Orleans' defense went to Derrick for a bid of $3 over Pope 1.0 and Alex. Also getting some action was Jordan Howard, who went to Drew for $9 over Lee's $7 bid. New wagers this week, Derrick and Lee are wagering a 6-pack on their matchup this upcoming weekend. My matchup with Scotty B, our Cleveland-Pittsburgh matchup, is a wash for another week as both teams won this week. Cleveland maintains their 1-game lead and the current lead in the AFC North, so he's in a better spot than I am on that one. Randall Cobb had another 3 catches this week to Jake Kumarov 0, so that continues to lead in my favor. I think it's 14-1 at this point in favor of Cobb. However, with Devontae Adams' injury, Kumarov may get some run this weekend, and if Devontae Adams is unable to play. We'll see what happens. That's it for this week. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you after week 5.